Hey, what up, YouTube? I made a video about 3 years ago, and we are back discussing the same topic. A lot has changed since then. That video has got the same title. It's called "What if your Premier League team could only have England players?" We've seen a lot recently of people painting England flags on roundabouts and marches through London with England flags, and all sorts of things associated with the England flag. Well, let's entertain this viewpoint for a moment and think, well, if only the Premier League could only have English players, what would the table eventually look like? Would it be better or would it be worse? We'll go from bottom up. The team I've got in last place is Wolves. Brutally honest, mainly academy players with Wolves. Their best player by far is probably Dan Bentley, who is their backup goalkeeper in real life. They've got some truly howlers out there like Luke Rawlings, and like he's like 17, I think. But most of their players, I've created a whole starting 11. They've got a player called Caden Voice, right? It's basically just a load of academy players. By the way, for the sake of this video, ones which we are saying if you are born in England or have English citizenship and play for the English national team or England under something, then you are English. However, if you were born in England and then decided not to play for the England's national team like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, then you are not allowed in the league. So yeah, Wolves, as they're pretty much doing in real life, actually are on track to finish bottom, but this is even worse considering the majority of our team is made up of academy players. Fulham would also be relegated. Most notably, their best player would be Emile Smith-Rowe, you would probably say, in attacking midfield. They do have Ryan Sessegnon. That's not a bad option. Harrison Reed as well. So a few decent options, so to speak. Josh King is getting there. I think within a few years he definitely will be up there. But again, a lot of academy players. They've even got a person with a name of Terrell Works. You know, it's again a side that is not looking overly good. A lot of academy players still. Yeah, I reckon they'll be relegated in this scenario. AFC Bournemouth would be the last team relegated. I think this may come as a bit of a shock for people because you look at the back line, they've got people like Adam Smith in it. You've got Lewis Cook, Alex Scott, Marcus Tavernier. They're like the notable names in terms of who you immediately think of. But beyond them four, so to speak, you're really beginning to struggle. You've got Will Dennis, who's, I think, third choice goalkeeper. But then you've got players like Ollie Morgan, who is he? Like, again, Finn Tonks, a lot of the players who are quite raw, quite academy-based players will probably be all right players in a few years' time. But at the moment, yeah, not good enough that you would say to be able to stay up even in this simulation. Tottenham Hotspur would finish in 17th, interestingly. Players I can pick out, Dominic Solanke as a centre forward, James Maddison, Jed Spence. They're sort of Archie Gray. They're sort of the ones that I can pick out here. But again, you're looking at there's some serious gaps in that defence because other than Jed Spence, the rest of that back four, Tyrrell Ashcroft a few years' time maybe, the Mason King, probably not. Jason Rosewell, again, probably not. Like, you've got, and the wingers are equally quite a risk. A lot of burden will be placed on the senior pros here of Maddison and Solanke, I would imagine. So, yeah. Nottingham Forest would finish in Is it 16th? Yes, it's 16th. What am I thinking? Yeah, Other than you got attacking wise, you know what? I'd give it to them. They're decent in attack. They've got Amari Hutchinson as the centre forward. Behind him, you've got Morgan Gibbs White. You've got Callum Hudson-Odoi on one wing, James McAtee on the other. You know, and even in midfield, Ryan Yates and Elliot Anderson, it's not too bad. My real weakness is you're looking at the defensive line. You've got Aaron Bott in goal, Jonathan Whiteley, Zach Abbott, Jack Thompson, and David Madupi. If you've heard of any of these players and you're not a Forest fan, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, I couldn't even find a good enough photo of who this Jonathan Whiteley was. So, yeah, that is a severe weakness, would be their defence. Burnley, which is often the team that a lot of people would say traditionally would have done quite well if it was an all England team. And I think the last time I did them, they definitely finished in like Champions League or something. They have changed a significant amount since then, and they will be finishing 15th in my opinion. Carl Walker, I think, is a bit of a redeeming factor in this side. They've got Jaden Anthony, not a bad winger, and Ashley Barnes up front. Again, not a bad option to have. Marcus Edwards, I think he's probably championship standard. Josh Laurent as well. You know, Joe Worrell, decent centre-back, but you do also have people like Bradley Grant, no one's heard of. Lewis Forshaw, no one's heard of. Again, a lot of that team, not overly the strongest. It's a combination of aging and championship standard, but I know, 15th, it would probably suit Burnley a bit better to be English only, but only marginally. Liverpool, interestingly enough, would be 14th, a mid-table finish for them, because even though Liverpool have got a good strong side, a lot of their players that they're choosing are not overly good. Freddie Woodman, mid-table championship at best in terms of in goal. Joe Gomez is probably the biggest standout in centre-back, or Curtis Jones as well in midfield is decent. I think it's just because of how good some of their academy players are. Like players like Cade Gordon, Jaden Dans, Reece Williams, Luke Chambers. They're good players. Jay Spearing. You got actually Jay Spearing's not an academy, but well, he plays for the academy, but he's like 41. It's odd, but they've got a decent side for an academy side, but it's only because they're a strong academy side. It's why they're going to be mid-table. Sunderland will finish above them. That's 13th place for Sunderland. So, a decent finish. I think they'd be happy with that in this simulation, so to speak. They've got Luca Nyan, Chris Rigg, Romain Mundle is all right, Dan Neil, I think, might be a solid one. Dennis Sirkin. I think they've got solid options. Jay Matete. None of them are overly howlers. I think Zach Johnson is probably the weak spot in this side. But, it's a decent side. I think that's what you do tend to find if I did this with the championship. It'd be roughly where the championship is about now, because there's a lot more English players in the championship. So those who naturally come up from the championship are going to naturally be slightly better. 12th, Leeds United. They have James Justin. That's a solid option there if he can stay fit. Jaden Bogle, again, another good option. Sean Longstaff, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Jack Harrison. So it's a decent team, relatively speaking. James DeBio is a weakness for me, and so is Reece Chadwick and Connor Douglas. There are some blaring holes, but they may be able to be covered by some of the strength that the overall side have. So, yeah, I think mid-table for Leeds. Brighton and Hove Albion, I think, would finish in 11th. They got a decent backline. You've got Jason Steele. You've got Lewis Dunk in there. You've got Adam Webster. I think if we were talking a couple of seasons down the line, maybe not so much. Jack Hinchelwood, I think he's one, though, with a lot of potential, and I think he's proven himself quite well last season. Danny Welbeck, again, great player. Same with Solly March. But yeah, I think we're beginning to get to the stage where some of these, you've only got a couple of weaknesses, like your Freddie Simmons or your Charlie Tasker or your Harry Howell or Coffee Shaw. But, overall, I think this side will probably be able to cope fairly well in this simulation. Manchester City would be next. I think that's because, again, you're looking how good at the Manchester City's academy is. You've got James Trafford in goal, and I think he's quite a good goalkeeper in all honesty. You've got John Stones as a centre-back. Rico Lewis is quite a good player. Nico O'Reilly, I think you got to say he's going on to good things at the moment. Could have a breakthrough year, maybe. Calvin Phillips and Phil Foden. You know, they're decent players. I think the one issue would be in attacking sense. You got Reagan Heskey, Justin Abavwudu, and Ryan McAdoo. It sounds almost like a song, isn't it? Abavwudu, McAdoo. Like, it's not really a strong starting lineup up front, is it? Manchester United would be just above them. I think we've got them in 10th, or is it? No, that's 9th. Sorry, I've currently miscounting. So yeah, top half finish for them. They've got Tom Heaton in goal. What a classic throwback name that is. Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw. You know, you got a few staple English ones, Mason Mount, you know, and Kobe Mainu. So you got players which are in the English national team. So they have got some really strong players really carrying them. And a lot of the academy players, they're not too bad either, you know. Coming through with that, you got the likes of Shea Lacey, which isn't too bad. Sam Mayfair, Tyler Frederickson. Probably beginning to emerge onto the scene this season or so. But yeah, I think, you know, solid top half season. 8th, Brentford. Miss Macon was a surprise. I don't know how many people would be able to name a Brentford players in this regard, but you got Rico Henry, John Henderson, Keane Lewis Potter, Josh Da Silva. We're going to count Josh Da Silva for this sake because he's currently still training with a club. Reece Nelson. And that's about it. I'm going to be honest. But I think other than Kaelin Avenel, I think a lot of the, and Theo Mwene, a lot of the academy players are semi all right. You know, that they're not. A lot of them are, yes, admittedly reserves, but I think, you know, enough for a top half of finish on a push up the table. West Ham United would be the next one. They'd finish 7th. So if we go a conventional route, sort of Conference League finish, you know, in this simulation, West Fodringham in goal. You'd have James Ward-Prowse, partnering alongside Freddie Potts, which I think is a decent midfield. You've got Max Kilman as the centre-back, Carl Walker-Peters, good players there. But my days, you can't ignore this front two, which would be banging him in, Callum Wilson and Jared Bowen. That is a strong attacking output. So yeah, I'd say solid Conference League finish for West Ham United. 6th is Arsenal, because I think Arsenal's academy has proven itself time and time again to be full of great players. Like Miles Lewis-Skelly burst onto the scene. He's already looking naturally at this level. You've got Ben White in goal. You've got Declan Rice, not in goal, I mean defence. Declan Rice in midfield. Max Doman is heavily tipped for good things, so he can definitely push himself up. Eberechi Eze, decent player. Madueke, again. Bukayo Saka, I think, is probably going to be one of the best players in this simulation, actually. So, yeah, I think, you know, solid Europa League finish for Arsenal. Also finishing in Europa League would be Chelsea. They have got Delap up front as a target man. You know, Liam Delap feeding in behind with Cole Palmer. That's got to be counting for something. You've got as well Raheem Sterling. I know he's been frozen out, but in this simulation he'd be back, wouldn't he? So yeah, Levi Colwill, Trevor Chalobah, Reece James if he can stay fit. You know, it's not a bad team in a sense, and I think this is more reflection maybe of how good some of the academies are out there. Onto the Champions League positions, and we first of all we got into 4th, Crystal Palace. Is anyone really surprised? I always look at the Palace side and always think that's full of English players for the England national team potentially. You've got Dean Henderson, you've got Mark Wahi, Nathaniel Klein is getting on a bit, but still a decent option to have there. Tyrick Mitchell, Will Hughes, Adam Wharton, decent players there. Romain Esse. Eddie Nketiah. You know, that's a solid lineup. That's a lineup which actually I'd say, even in a normal Premier League, there's only a few minor weaknesses, but I think that side would probably normally be able to stay up in the Premier League. Aston Villa in third. You got Ollie Watkins up top, Tyrone Mings, Enzo Konza in defence, Ross Barkley, Harvey Elliott, Morgan Rogers, Jadon Sancho. It's a fairly decent lineup, in all honest. You got Lino Sousa is maybe a weakness, as is Travis Patterson. James Wright in goal, obvious weakness as well. But, it's definitely, as long as you don't try and place too much pressure on goalkeeper, when you've got two centre-backs in Tyrone Mings and Enzo Konza, I still think top three very much a realistic possibility. Finishing as runners-up, we have Everton, which is not a surprise to me. That was the last club that Sean Dyche managed. Jordan Pickford in goal. He's England's #1 at present. Jared Branthwaite, great player. Michael Keane, great player. James Tarkowski, great player. Got Dwight McNeil, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Jack Grealish, and Tyler Diblin has got a huge potential as well. So, yeah, I think this side is more than capable for pushing for a title race. And then to win the league, I've got Newcastle United, which is definitely a team that I look at Newcastle's team and I think actually about 9 out of the 11 of these teams, these players rather, could probably make a case for being in the England starting 11, or at least on the plane to the World Cup. You got Nick Pope in goal. He's always a solid option. You got a back four, Lewis Hall, Dan Burn, Tino Livramento, and Kieran Trippier. I challenge you to say any of them wouldn't deserve at least a potential opportunity to be on the plane. You got Jacob Ramsey, solid player. Joe Willock, decent player. The one which maybe not, Lewis Miley, I wouldn't say so, and we wouldn't necessarily say Ramsey either. But front three of Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon, and Jacob Murphy. Solid team all round for the Geordies. So maybe in this simulation, the Geordies are the winners overall. But it was just a bit of fun and games, and to all those people who are painting roundabouts with England flags, or deciding for some reason to show your patriotism, you need to go around putting an England flag everywhere. Just stop. It's not necessary. We get it. You're proud to be English, but you don't need to be racist to be proud of English culture and heritage. And notice how many of these players that I said who were even born in England are either of coloured or of a background with their parents who are not originally from England or anything like that. They're a decent, but the Premier League is much better. But now we've got much more multicultural Premier League, because let's be honest, none of them sides would be able to do well in the Champions League. And let's be honest, it would be pretty bad to watch the Premier League if some of them players were having to be out week in, week out. So enough of the racism, enough of the trolling. You can love England, but love England because you love the people, and not love whatever is causing you to put up an England flag. End of a rant, but I hope this video was both informative and a little bit entertaining. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you in my predictions video tomorrow. Goodbye for now.